Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am finally here with the Simon Says stamp card kit for February 2019. Yeah, February. Just a little bit behind. Unfortunately, when you have something happen, you kind of rearrange things. So, getting slowly back on track. So, these are the contents that were in the kit back in February. Some great floss, a beautiful stamp set, a large background stamp set, beautiful papers, very vintage. You got some unicorn dust, funny story on the unicorn dust, wait till you see, and also some embossing powder. So you got a lot of great items in here to play with so that you could create your cards. I will be making 5 cards with this one kit. Now I know these are also for Valentine's Day. It's okay. We'll catch up with it and have fun with it. Don't forget, as always, with any of these kits, you also get a wonderful inspiration sheet that kind of helps to give some ideas on how you want to create your cards. Okay, so let's dig right into card number 1. So when it came to this kit, when it came to the feel, these you're going to find are very different. I mean, yes, they're Valentine's Day. Yes, it's love, hearts, florals, vintage, beautiful. But for some reason, when it came to this kit, I saw grunge very much. But a vintage grunge. I don't know if that's possible. But when it does come to Valentine's Day or hearts, that is kind of where my tastes go. And again, I cannot stress this enough. My tastes. And yes, there are reasons why I'm stressing that. So again, I'm not evil. I'm not, I'm not mean. It's just something that I do gravitate towards. When it comes to that look. So you saw that I took the background stamp and I stamped it on one of the pattern papers, and I didn't care that it was even. I didn't want a solid impression. I wanted it to be very light, almost like a graffiti in the back is the look that I was going for when it came to those bricks. That's kind of what I saw there. So what I'm going to grab now is the elongated stamp from the large stamp set. And again, the details in these images is just absolutely gorgeous. Now, what I'm going to pull in here, using my EK Success powder tool, and I want to use my VersaFine black onyx ink, because in the kit, remember, clear fine detail embossing powder from Simon Says came with it. So that's what I want to use. I want this to be embossed. I want that raised texture. And I'm going to cover that with the clear embossing powder, and I will heat set that in place. Again, there's fine details in these stamps, and I wanted to use those to my advantage. Could I use colored pencils with these? Yes. Can you use watercolor markers? Yes, you can. But what I want to do is almost, not so much an ink smushing, but I just want to splat. Yes, that's a technical term, splat. To go across these. I didn't want it to be specific. So I'm not even going to tape this down. I'm just going to spray a light mist of water, and I'm going to use one of the Nuvo powders. Ink powders or shimmer powders, and just move this around. I grabbed one of my brushes and I'm just moving that. I love the color of this. It's called Catherine Wheel, and it's got beautiful reds and corals and pinks when it comes to the shades in these colors. So I know what everyone's thinking. Yes, it looks very dark and deep. But that's exactly what I was looking for. I'm going to come in with one of my heart dies, and I want to cut that on an angle so that those florals are going to go up so that they can be towards the bottom. But I also want to make sure that the image is sitting in the heart. I don't want to lose that image. I didn't want to cut that off. So I've got some of the white at the bottom. The paper that I used was Canson XL to do this image on with the Nuvo powder. Grabbing a piece of black scrap cardstock, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment, I love you more each day. I love that sentiment. And I'm going to heat set that using white, fine detail white from Simon Says. Now, what I'm also going to do, I started to, we all know, if you've seen my videos before, I am horrible at trimming sentiments straight. I mean, I'm okay with their crooked, but I really do try and strive to make them straight. So even though I used my trimmer, I am going to change that because, again, the feeling, the look that I was going for when it came to these cards is very different. I'm pulling in my vintage photo ink, and I'm just going around the edge of the heart. I'm going around the edge of my panel. When I put the heart on this, I didn't think it was standing out that much, and I thought the sentiment on the black cardstock was going to wash it out. So I did just cut another heart from the black cardstock so that I could use that as an offset background. I'm going to take my panel, and I'm going to use one of the pre-scored card bases, which are standard A2 size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, on, or for my background, and then I'm going to set the heart in place. Now, I am specifically setting this off of the edge. I want it to go off of the edge because I will be trimming that, just so that there's movement. And you can see that I'm remembering this. It's okay. I can move it. I still have the ability to do that, and no one will ever know. Just don't look at that. We're going to cover that. So again, we can change. It's paper. That's the beauty of paper. Paper can be glued together. It's got two sides. We can tear it, rip it, shred it, crumble it, poke it. It sounds mean, right? I know. This is horrible. So now that I have that, I've trimmed up the edges, and I'm looking at this sentiment, and it's, to me, it's very boxy, if that makes sense. So I am going to stamp it again. I'm going to heat set it again. Now we will use that other one that I used. I don't throw it away. Again, I've got these little pots all over my table where I keep all my scraps. Sometimes, you know, and I go through them every once in a while. If I find that I haven't used them in a while, then yes, I will purge, or I'll do something with them real quick. So I just wanted to heat set that again. I use a microfiber cloth to clean my powder off of my cardstock. So here we're going to tear it. I just thought that the tear effect would make more sense on this than the boxy straight line. Again, my eyes, I let the eyes tell me, okay, this looks right, this doesn't look right, and it's the same thing as your gut. I kind of let that go for me. So in this way also, when it comes to the tearing, I'm able to get really close to the sentiment, because cutting it with the straight lines, it was going too wide, and I didn't want to lose the bottom part of the heart. So there was a lot of thought process going on with this one, but I really do like the outcome. I like the way that it did come out. I think it's different. Again, it gives me that graffiti feel, and love can be anything. So it doesn't have to be pretty and bright. It could be dark and majestic. That's how I look at that. Okay. So for our next card, now this one will not be as dark, but I did die cut a lot of, or I die cut 4 hearts from the pattern paper from the kit, and I'm grabbing some of the floss that came in the kit. These are some 3 great colors, and I'm just going to wrap it around. I already die cut my panel using one of my stitch rectangle dies, and I'm just wrapping around. I'm not looking for it to be straight. I want it to be crooked. I want it to be all over the place. I'm going to use some double-sided tape just to secure that in the back, so that I could have those differences, making sure that it is getting between each of those strings as well to keep them separate. So you can see I also pulled back that sentiment that I embossed for the first card. And we'll make sure that that's going to get propped up over the floss. So going to set that kind of sort of in the center. It probably is in the center, but again, to me, it didn't look like it was. Usually I don't do anything directly into the center. Again, but rule of thirds, you can. So that's kind of what I do. So I'm going to take some of the hearts and I'm going to adhere them down. Some are going to go straight down onto the panel. Some will be propped up using some double-sided foam, just to give it some dimension. I recently picked up the Gina K foam squares. I like this size. I think they're awesome. Now, again, this is me as to why the whole box, by them not popping out, is not working. It is not the box. I just messed up the box. So it's kind of cool that you can pull it and they'll just keep popping out. So great dispenser. But yeah. But I really do like the size. I mean, I have some. I always have to cut them down. These are more universal size. So they are nice. I like them. Anyway, back to the card. So I've placed my hearts and now I'm just going to trim off the edges. No matter how small, I always trim off the edge in some cases to make sure that I have that to be even. And yes, while I got the foam squares, I'm going to try her tape runner as well. I like the feel of it. I do like the feel, how it feels in your hand as you're using it. It's very comfortable. Anyway. Again, using one of the card bases that came in the kit, I placed that down onto the front. Now, because it is a black card base, unless you use a white gel pen, which is fine, you can definitely do that. I've definitely done that before. I just cut a heart out of white cardstock, put that on the inside, and then use the spare one to come off of that just to decorate. So for our next card, now this one, okay, again, it's different. I'm pulling in my Hero Arts liquid watercolors in pink, strawberry, and black. So I grabbed a little tiny palette. I am going to use the single rose from the stamp set. And I cut out a couple of panels from the pattern paper that came in the kit as well. I only end up using one of them. I don't end up using the music. So I'm going to stamp this down onto some Canson XL watercolor paper because, again, obviously, since I pulled out my Hero Arts liquid watercolors, we're going to be watercoloring. But again, it's nothing fancy. It's something very different. So here's the funny part with the unicorn dust. Yes. Okay, so y'all see what I did there, right? I used my Versamark ink and I poured the dust over it, right? You all are getting what I'm thinking this is, right? I'm just putting it out there. I have no shame at all. Yes, I'm thinking this is embossing powder. How ridiculous am I? I eventually realize that and go, oh my God. So hoping I still have some stickiness onto it, we don't throw it away. I still want the glitter on it. So I use the clear embossing powder to trap it. It worked. You know, sometimes I scare myself, people. Okay, so back to the card. I can't stop laughing at this. Yes, I actually thought it was embossing powder. And then eventually, as I'm making that card, guys, I have to tell you, I am literally using a straw and I'm blowing this watercolor all over the place. I just put some drops and I'm using a straw to get those edges to come out, and now I'm going to come in with a water brush. So literally, as I was making that card, and when I realized, I literally screamed, I can't scream what I screamed. I'm like, you stupid idiot. It's dust. That means it's glitter. So, you know, hello. Probably the color yellow too on the label would have told me. Yeah. All right. So see, we have all kinds of fun. Here I'm getting really close and personal here with you, only because I'm still using that straw, because I do want those edges to come out. Now, I am going to continue to come in with my brush just to bring out some more, because I didn't want it to look like an octopus. I wanted it to just spread out. Again, another splat. But this one, I wanted it to be a splat. I wanted it to look like one. And I like pulling in the straw. Sometimes if you can get that really thin, you can get these great vines that come off of it. I wasn't getting exactly what I was looking for, but that's okay. This got me close to it. I liked the fact that since I embossed this eventually, you know, the colors pooled, so I have the different values within this piece. So once this was dry, I'm now going to come in with the black and just put black splatters going across this, and then letting that dry, because sometimes it will bleed and go through. Now, best advice here, you want to make sure that it is dry. So yeah, there was all kinds of funness going on with this kit. Having way too much fun. It was awesome. So I'm going to take this, and I cut strips because there was a piece of pattern paper with these beautiful black and ivory stripes. At least I thought they were cool. Again, very different. So I'm going to put those on the top and the bottom of this panel, and right there. So you want to make sure that they're dry, and that's okay. I did not scream on that. I'm like, okay, not a problem. With what I'm doing, I believe that's where I'm covering up. Will I always try to come in with my sand eraser to remove it? Yes. Will I sit there for hours trying to remove it, or for a long period of time? No. If it doesn't come off in the first 3 seconds, I give up and I move on, and we find a way to cover it. We got to let it go. It's, again, look at the sentiment. This little tiny panel that I chose. Love is an art that comes from the heart. So, again, nothing's perfect. You know, our hearts are different. Our thoughts are different. Our personalities are different. And that's what makes us unique and wonderful at the same time. Sometimes we can take it to an extreme, but we're not going to discuss that, nor will I. Okay? But that's okay to me. I like the differences. I like the uniqueness. The way that we can see things differently fascinates me. Hence the reason why I created, if you've seen my previous videos regarding my group, that's kind of why I created it. I'm fascinated with the fact that people can be inspired by so many different things, and to see that and to watch that happen, I think is wonderful. And it helps to get people creative. So that's why we do this. So anyway, okay, back to the card. Sorry, rambled. So again, I have those strips at the top. I want to set that off on an angle. I'm going to set that down directly onto my card base. I'm not working on a design panel like I usually do. I will come in with my long shears after I remove all the glue that's all over my pad there, before it goes all over the place, because that's what I do. I was on a roll with this one. And I'm just going to trim it. So I want that even. So you've just got these angles that are coming off of your card base. Now this card base is also a standard A2 size card base, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it is a top folding card base. I did curl the edges up a little bit on that panel that I created, and I set that right over the smudge that I created myself. Simple. Okay, so for this one, now this, I'm using a die from a stash. a die from my stash. I like the way I said that. I believe it's from the Stamp Market. It's a tag die. So I cut from Desert Storm, a pattern paper, and vellum. All three. Now, the black piece of cardstock is just that. It is a piece of cardstock. It is not a card base. Okay, we're not... You'll see what we're creating here. So, again, I grabbed that elongated stamp set and the beautiful sentiment, "You will always be in my heart." And yes, it is kind of off. I wanted the flowers centered along the bottom, and the sentiment is kind of coming off towards the left-hand side. I do want to heat set this, and I am going to use my VersaFine black, and I'm going to use the clear to make sure that heat sets that. So that little blue piece, and I always get questions on that. I learned that from watching a video from BB Cameron. It's a piece of fun foam, and it gives me a perfect stamp impression every time. It also helps me not to do stamp CPR, because I'm horrible with that. I am one that thinks, okay, all the pressure in the world needs to go on the stamp. I still do it. It's amazing that I keep doing that, but it really does help. So that's where I had seen that. So I'm heat setting that, making sure that I don't keep my heat gun there constantly. I'm moving it away, bringing it back in so that my vellum doesn't warp too much. But it does also heat emboss beautifully. So that is going to sit on top of the pattern paper, and those are actually going to sit on top of the Desert Storm as well. Now, what I want to do is I just want to get these pieces together. All right. Now, what I also did was when I stapled those two, there's a reason. I want them to be held. So I grabbed all kinds of ribbons from my stash. So I grabbed my twine, I grabbed my organza, and I grabbed a ivory satin. So all of these are going to be put together to create the bows that I put together. I love multiple layer bows. I like the different textures, whether it's the satin, the organza, and then with this twine. I am a fan of that twine. I get it in the jewelry section. I forget what it's called. Hemp? No? You maybe? Okay. And I also like big flowy bows. I mean, I'm good with long tassels. I'm good with the disarray of that bow. And that's what I'm looking for. So what I want to do, what I'm doing here now is I'm taking this tag and I want to make sure that the top is going to fold up. So I wanted to score, and I came down 3/4 of an inch along this panel that I created. I'm going to glue the Desert Storm down onto the black panel. So what we've created here is, it's still a card, but it's not an opening card. What they're actually going to open is the tag. So you would write inside of the tag when it comes to the card, instead of having your traditional, and that's what inspired me. It was one of the photos from the inspirational sheet with the vellum coming over the pattern paper. That picture with the big banner coming down very much inspired me to come to this, and I believe well, I'm not sure, but that's just what helped me create this. I'm putting down a bunch of glue dots on this because this bow's pretty big. It's pretty massive, which I like. You know, again, when you do something like this, and I know you may need a bigger envelope, you may need more postage. I don't know how to figure that out because I just go to my post office and say, okay, I need this mailed. How much? So, but I hope you enjoyed that one. All right, so for our last card. So this one, the pattern paper kind of inspired me. So I grabbed a piece of black cardstock, and I'm using my clear embossing ink And I didn't want a metallic or anything else. So what I'm using here, I wanted to kind of match the pattern paper and what those images were. So I actually pulled out the sand mixture from Hero Arts from the Ocean kit. And I'm using that to heat emboss. Now, of course, there are some metallics in there, but it was close. I'm going to come in with my microfiber cloth to clean it up. Make sure that it's cool before you do that. Ask me what happens and how I know. And I'm going to fussy cut this out. So when I saw the pattern paper, it had that heart similar going along it. You can see it there. It's just something that I wanted to continue that, to recreate that. I then used a smaller die, and I wanted to use one of the very small sentiments, Love Never Ends. And I used just my VersaFine on that onto some Nina Desert Storm. I'm going to come around the edge of that with my vintage photo, and that's just going to come off of the corner of that heart. I'm going to prop up both of these on that pattern paper. Just to give it that dimension. I had another idea when I was making this card. There was another thought process that I had, and it wasn't coming out. So this is where I kind of ended up, and I still like it because I think it's, again, it's different. So once I knew that's where that heart was going to go, I'm now going to prop up the smaller one. And once I had these hearts in place, there was something missing. So I grabbed some of my ivory satin, and because it's propped up, I can thread it. So that's what I'm going to try to do here. So I use a needle to get that through on each side, and I want to wrap it around. I want to make sure that I'm going to attempt, and it's a very loose attempt here, I'm actually going to attempt to tie a bow. I have to tie a bow off the piece and then adhere it onto my piece. I can never just wrap it around the cardstock and tie the bow. I can't get it tight. I try to do that, even if I use the tweezers, the Amy R trick with the tweezers that I've seen so many times. It's a horrible process that I've got. It's amazing. Sometimes, you know, my mind just says, no, you are not permitted to do that. But I don't give up. I find another way. There's always another way when it comes to that. What I did like, though, since I really can't do that, I like the way that it got loose and the way that the ribbon is twisting just a little bit. It looks like it's kind of flying there or just hanging out there. So I do kind of like that. What I didn't want is, for my card base, it is a white card base, and I didn't want it that stark white. So I'm going to come in just around the edges. I'm using a piece of Post-it tape so that I don't get it onto the back of my cardstock. Now, I could have, and you'll see that I do this, you know, I'm just putting my vintage photo very dark around the edges. I don't worry about the inside because my panel's going to cover it. I want it to be modded. I don't want it to be solid. Now, for this top here, I really didn't need to use the postage strip. I could have just kept the card base folded and then come up onto the edge, because you can see I'm kind of off there, and that's exactly what I do. So it would have worked, and it didn't get onto the underside because I just checked that out. So again, that's another way. You could just use your inks. If you don't have a lot of cardstock, you can use your inks to create your backgrounds or to create your shading, and so forth. You know, again, you can always stretch what we have in our stash. So I'm just going to adhere that down and make sure that is firmly in place. So here are the close-ups of the 5 cards that we made from the Simon Says February 2019 card kit. I'm so sorry this is so late, but better late than never. Again, I'm about inspiration, to give you some ideas, a different way to look at something, and sometimes I can go very differently. So I do hope you enjoyed these. Again, little strange, I know, but again, our eyes are very different. Our tastes are very different. So again, just another view with all that. All the products that I used, as always, will be listed down below. If you want to check them out, I will have links. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe and tune in for my next. Here are a few other videos I thought you might like that are similar to this using Simon Says products. Take care, everyone, and always remember, be creative.